I was working in a small restaurant with 2 floors. A woman and a man came in, and I had a table for them upstairs. It looked like they had a first date because they were asking those get-to-know-each-other questions. After ordering food, the woman had to go to the toilet, which is downstairs. As she walked to the stairs, the food arrived. She walked down, tripped, and fell all the way down, knocking her head on the ground. 2 colleagues immediately rushed over to see how she was doing. She was unconscious and bleeding from her head, so they called an ambulance. I went to the man while he already started eating and told him his partner didn't know how to call her, fell down the stairs, and that she was unconscious and that an ambulance was on the way. He walked to the stairs, looked down, and walked back to his table to finish his food. Later, the ambulance arrived, and I asked him if he wanted to go with them to the hospital, and he said no, while he was finishing her food as well. It was so awkward. He sat there for another 45 minutes, eating, drinking, paid the bill, and left. I still don't know what kind of relationship they had and whether the woman is okay. I'm just dying here because by me giggling, I'm sure that Karma is a bitch when it comes to me. And that's a story for another day. Okay, the first date was anything but heartwarming. When a health emergency arose during this date, the potential love interest didn't make much fuss. He didn't hold his date's hand during a dramatic ambulance ride, and he certainly didn't wait heroically at her hospital bed. Instead, this poor injured woman rode to the hospital alone and unconscious while her date set to work finishing her meal. We doubt Noah Centineo will play this guy in a rom-com anytime soon. Number 2, I work in an Italian restaurant. A few years ago, I waited on a guy and a girl who met for the first time upon arriving at the restaurant. There were awkward pleasantries exchanged at the door, and they were seated. When I was taking their order, the guy asked if we had soup because he had had mouth surgery a few days prior, and chewing food was still a little rough. We don't have soup, so I explained that the softest food on the menu was gnocchi. He ordered the house gnocchi and proceeded to cut each tiny dumpling into 4... I'm sorry, guys, I have to laugh. Into 4 or more pieces and slowly... Oh my God. Where was I? And proceeded to cut each tiny dumpling into 4 or more pieces and slowly chew each piece. He ate that entire dish over a 3-hour period, and the girl stuck it out for the whole thing. She looked miserable, and I'm pretty sure they never saw each other again. Fresh out of the hospital? Your first date can wait. Desperation isn't a good look on anyone, especially on a first date. Still, though, this guy appeared to be completely intent on carrying out his first date plans. He even decided to show up in the middle of his oral surgery recovery process. And what happened? This guy turned the date into a painful ordeal that lasted way too long. I own a bakery. I see a lot of shitty first coffee dates and shitty people in general, but there's one that will always be the worst for me. This happened at my bakery maybe 6 months into our first year. 2 boys come in, chatting normally, clearly on their first date. They are both young, maybe 15 at the most, and adorably nervous. They order at the counter and go find a table, sitting close. One of them starts holding the other's hand, playing with his fingers, just being cute. All of a sudden, this woman comes up and starts berating one of the boys. It was his mother. She had shown up because she wanted to meet the girl, because her son was being cagey about who it was. I assume he had mentioned where they were going because she wouldn't let him out of the house if he didn't know. She starts screaming and crying about her son, how he could do this to their family. Doesn't he know she wants grandkids? His father would be so ashamed if he was still alive. Doesn't his father's memory mean anything? She then tells him that if he keeps up with this, don't bother coming home, and then marches out of our shop. This poor boy is just weeping while his not even really boyfriend is trying to comfort him, completely bewildered with what happened. I work at a country club that is up to its ears in old money that uses said old money to make more new money. Then membership fees cost more than a year at my university. To say money is not an issue, there would be an understatement. Anyways, I was serving a young couple and the power imbalance was phenomenal. She was the daughter of one of the board members and the entire staff knew her. Read her father's club account was major money. Okay, just kind of trying to understand this. And the gent, well, he wasn't a member, and he certainly looked like he was just the average broke college student. He was wearing plain but nice clothes, and she was dressed to the nines in fashion. That seemed to go smoothly enough, nothing out of the ordinary, until she gets up and leaves the table before I have brought out the bill. I bring the bill to the counter, knowing it is well over $300 worth of food and drinks, all things she insisted on ordering: 2 bottles of top-shelf wine, neither finished, 2 steaks. When he asks for the chicken, she insisted on him eating steak like a man, and he solemnly goes to pull out his wallet and starts tearing up, apologizing that he won't be able to leave a tip. I mean, I've never had a customer cry over not being able to tip. And he further explained he was a server too, and that she didn't know he wasn't rich, and she left because he had told her about his scholarship. I was flabbergasted, and I kindly reminded him that at this country club, we do not take credit cards nor cash. We only charge to accounts. And so her father got a hefty bill. Rest assured, he signed a handsome tip to me in her name. Club policy is that the registered guests may sign for their host member, given that the members have invited them. It was entirely satisfying. Last I heard, her father cut her off. I can't help but smile at all the life lessons she is learning, like working to go on dates. I was separated from my first husband, and a friend thought I needed to get back into the dating game and set me up with one of his coworkers. He picked me up and we drove to the restaurant. We sat down. The waitress brought us our waters and menu. He took one look at the prices and grabbed my hand and said, "Let's go. I'm not paying these prices." We went to a second restaurant. Before they seated us, he asked to look at a menu. He looked at the prices, handed the menu back, and turned around and walked out. I suggested we just go get pizza. So we ended up at Pizza Hut. Then on the ride back to my house, kept asking what our kids would look like if we were married. He dropped me off and I avoided his calls to this day. The next one is, I was on a dating site, started talking to this guy via text, and he was hilarious. We decided to talk on the phone. Oh my God, he was boring. Nice enough, but boring. So I chalked it up to just not a phone person. Well, we set up on a date for the next week. He lived in Fort Worth, Texas. We decided I would drive down there and stay in his spare bedroom because it was a 3-hour drive. Well, I got bit by a brown recluse spider 4 days before the date. I went to the hospital twice and got really sick, but thought I was through the worst of it. Still didn't feel so hot come that Saturday. And by then, I was really bored talking to him. And I don't like to make plans with people and then break them. So I made the 3-hour drive. Felt like crap the whole way. Got down there and was not attracted to him, but he was nice. We went to dinner and I got up to use the restroom. Felt like I was going to pass out. We went back to his place, sat in the garage listening to music. I promptly got up and had to run to the restroom to puke, and I puked my guts out. My chest hurt, my back hurt, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. I asked him to please show me where the spare bedroom was, and I fell fast asleep. Woke up at about 6 a.m. in a puddle of sweat. My chest felt like an elephant was on it. Breathing sent sharp stabbing pains in my back and chest. I could barely stand up straight, let alone walk. But somehow I made it to the kitchen where he was making coffee. I told him he needed to take me to the emergency room, and he looked at me quizzically and I screamed, "Dude, now, something isn't right." The freaked out look on his face with this little 4'11" woman screaming at him for a hospital was priceless. He helped me into his truck and I promptly passed out. I don't remember the ride to the hospital. I woke up in a wheelchair in the front of reception. They took me straight back to the trauma room and started tests. My ER nurse was hot. Me, being me, feeling like I was going to die, kept cracking jokes. By this time, my date was just sitting in the waiting room dumbfounded. The doctors came in and informed me that I was very sick and I would not be going home. I asked the nurse to go get my date because my phone was dead and I needed my charger from out of my truck so that I could charge my phone and call my family. The nurse asked if he was my boyfriend. I told him no and explained that I had just met him. Well, the nurse went and got him. I gave the guy my truck keys. He went to go get my truck and belongings. The nurse looked at me and said, "You could do much better." LMAO. Then asked which dating site I was on. Well, my date drove my truck back to the hospital, dropped off my stuff, and Ubered home.